Well, that was a doozy. Welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den, guys. I just finished watching episode 5 of The Last of Us. It's a special Friday night edition, so they didn't have to go up against the Super Bowl. I'm still pretty blown away. We're going to talk a whole lot about this as long as I can keep my eyes open because it's been a busy, busy week for the Wolf. And King Z's had a busy week also. But King Z, what's the good word over there?
Well, first off, we need to refer to it as the big game. We don't want to be sued by those NFL affiliates and everything.
Sorry about that. We do not have a formal written permission by the NFL and its affiliates. Yeah.
By the way, if you're betting, take Kansas City minus 1.5.
Seems like a no-brainer.
With that bet.
Seems like a no-brainer.
But yeah, over here, my last weekend away from home, next Saturday, after we're done, after I'm done delivering, on my way home. So yeah, it's looking good. I'm just about done. This is my last trip out before I start a movie on the 21st of February.
Nice.
I'll be on set working on a movie, so that's good. I just got a text today who they were asking for my resume for one that starts 6 weeks from now as well.
And
so
those are both closer to home, right? Those aren't going to require you to be far away. Yeah, that's cool.
They're both in the Augusta area.
Nice.
Oh, you don't know? I live in Augusta, Georgia.
And now we're not off the grid. There we go. So that concludes that portion of the game I was going to play with Guess King Z's location, but I guess we don't need to do that now. Dude, so here's a rando one, but it's on brand for horror, right? Rando question for King Z. In a horror movie situation, would you rather be A, the final girl, the hero, the heroine, whichever, you know the role, the archetype, the final girl, the one that eventually puts Freddy down or puts Jason down, right? Or would you rather be the first victim that doesn't see it coming?
Well, usually the first victim that doesn't see it coming is having sex, so that would be a good way to go. I'm not going to lie to you on that one.
It was up here when I came up with the question.
So yeah, I'll probably go with that one because that's usually the jock and the hot girl. So yeah, I'll go with that one.
Dude, not gonna lie, I was torn for it for a while, and eventually I settled on victim that gets it first and quick, on account of, do I really want to be the survivor that then has to deal with like the survivor guilt and the trauma, from age 25 to age like 70, assuming like I don't self-delete after not being able to cope with all that awful shit. So, all right, we're on the same page for that. That's my morbid question for the day. Thank you for playing the game, King Z. I thought you were going to go the other way, honestly. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Cabin in the Woods, the heroine actually caused the end of the world. So,
which was awesome, and why that's one of my more modern top 5 favorites. That's a good video for another day. Top 5 post-2000 favorite horror movies. So we can't cut into the 70s, 80s, 90s. Put a pin in that. But we're going to get into The Last of Us episode 5 because I think we need to do this quick before the lights go out or somebody's kid wakes up or I fall asleep or King Z falls asleep.
Am I the meanest?
Show meta.
Am I the baddest mofo low down around this time?
Show meta.
And welcome to the show meta, here with Bruce Leroy Green. Today's episode is called Endure and Survive. It was written by our favorite 2 writers, to include Neil Duckerman and Mazin. Directed by Jeremy Webb. This is his 2nd episode, as he did the last one in this one, which makes very sense if you watch the episode.
Very seamless.
Runtime was 107. And the quick synopsis is we see the aftermath of Henry and Sam as they take Joel and Ellie captive. But did they? Or did they try to just team up? And that's the show meta, brought to you by King Z. Back over to you, Winter Wolf.
Here we go. All right, guys, you know what comes next. It's assault mode. Before I get into my whole thing about the assault mode in the episode and its ups and downs, just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's been watching the show and keeping up. We got a lot of new faces that I see when I check the analytics, new subscribers, and I appreciate all you guys with the likes, the comments we get, the new channel subscribers. I'd really like to bust the 100 subscriber threshold by the end of the run of this show. We've been floating right around the mid-90s. for a couple of weeks and leading into and after the Hogwarts Legacy giveaway. Stay tuned for a Hogwarts Legacy spoiler-free review from Winterwolf coming soon, because I got like 25 hours into this and it's been a blast so far. But we'd appreciate it if we can get over 100 sooner than later. A little humble brag just for myself when I brag to folks at work that I got a channel. I'd like to be able to say it's in the triple digits, but back to business. King Z, what I was saying before we had that little technical glitch there is, after seeing tonight's episode, and this is just initial thoughts for the whole show running into, 1 through 5 so far, the more I see episodes like this, the more I'm pissed about episode 3, and it continues to slip inside my own internal scoring system. It really does. Because again, with this episode here, we get scenes literally lifted right out of the game. Like the entire boss battle, shootout, siege thing at the end, that is legitimately one of the better set pieces of the first game. One of my favorites, even as it starts, with the sniper firing down on them as they're like approaching, like when they get deeper into the neighborhood and things like that. So the more
place in that game mechanic you were talking about earlier, where you go from cover to cover to cover.
Exactly, and it's done in the show in an organic way that makes sense, that doesn't feel contrived. It fits the tone and the vibe of the world, and that's. It's so easy to do because the game lays out this foundation, this roadmap of how to get these kind of scenes done, that it pisses me off even more now that we really had that complete wild, out of genre, out of tone, very well done, performed and acted and written. So, say that again for the billionth time. But they really didn't need to do any of that because it didn't move anything forward. Every single beat in tonight's episode moved the plot of the game and the show forward in a way that's recognizable and authentic to the source material, despite changes that they made that I had to go back and double check because I actually took a couple minutes to do it. But it just, this whole show, this whole episode now feels like it's 4 episodes and then episode 3. Like there's one of these things is not like the other, and it pisses me off that they wasted that kind of screen time on that. That's what it feels like now.
And what they're doing with that is that they're missing out on a great opportunity of doing an anthology, also in the world of Last of Us. They could change the name instead of Last of Us, which is based on the game, but they could do a complete anthology of like how people lived. Mm-hmm. Around, and like you could go and hit some of these minor characters like Bill and Frank. They were minor characters in the game, and you can have a whole episode on that. You could dedicate it all 1 hour and 20 minutes to their life together in this post-apocalyptic world, and then you could go and find another story that you want to highlight.
And the game's
other
full
minor
of those.
Characters.
The game is full of these. It's
because
every little pickup and collectible in the game.
Yeah, if you go to the part, like we're skipping ahead, we're not going scene by scene, but you have the scene where they go down into that like survivor bunker that they had with the school and the toys and everything.
Also lifted right from the game. The rainbow on the wall was it's a playground. It was a dead giveaway of that little protected area. Yep.
And there was a picture on the wall that was literally in the game that they picked up, and you read, and it gives you a slight insight of the backstory of the person who wrote that. They could do that and do an episode just on them.
Dude,
and then you can go through and like read a love letter to a soldier that went to the front line to fight the first wave of infected.
Stole the idea right out of my head. Yep.
So you to do a complete anthology series where a episode like episode 3 would play even better in than it would in this run of the show.
Yep, I 100% agree with that, and I think that, again, we tie all these things back together on what other inspirations for this show could have been, and again, this is the World War Z model, like no pun intended, King Z, but like that's exactly what this is. It's epistolary, it's love letters from home, it's little video shaky cam things that we pick up and watch that show the heroic last stand of a fort that's about to be overrun. It's the Battle of Yonkers. It's how an African village in the middle of nowhere with no guns and no internet, no armored vehicles, defended their homes against hordes of the undead by like community standards, like sticking together and like holding the line. Like that's such an easy show to make. It's so simple. So
we
simple.
all know we all want to see the blind samurai in the swamp.
Oh, dude, sign me up, dude. If it's not that and it's not the Battle of Yonkers, you don't have a show. And the Israel thing. Those are the 3 segments. Oh, yeah. And the India-Pakistan one, where the soldiers combine forces on the pass and they have to hold. I think
Yeah.
they drop a tank or they nuke a bridge or something to like cut off the advance. That's also a pretty dope part of that book, without a doubt. So those 4 things, though, that's a guaranteed. If you do 2 episodes out of those 4 things, you've got a banger of a series waiting to happen. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
But that's unrelated to World War Z. So let me pull it back into The Last of Us and just tie it back into this thing. We're not going to go scene for scene today because basically, guys, it's, you know, Sam and Henry have Joel and Ellie at gunpoint at the beginning. That situation quickly resolves as it does in the game. They put their tensions and fears aside. They kind of like link forces for the common goal of getting the younger people in the group out of Kansas City and away from the Resistance or Fedra, whoever it is in the game. I think it's Fedra in the game. It's the Resistance here because they had to expand things.
Yep.
But right away, we get a lot of much needed background filling in from me. And I like this stuff because I had gripes last week, if you remember, with the leader of the Resistance seemingly being some rando woman that just rose to power despite her, you know, not having like a soldier's build or, you know, combat experience that she's talking about and things like that. So they filled in some backstory about the Resistance, which I like, and that
Yes.
her brother that she's trying to avenge because Henry got him killed somehow. We get a lot filled in that not only was, you know, Henry like the collaborator with Fedra, it's that Henry turned Kathleen's brother into Fedra, who then murdered him in prison, but that also the brother was the first head of the Resistance, and she was his number 2. So she is a known quantity within the structure. So it would make sense that if she's the next in line for power, people do trust her. So I was glad that they filled in that little detail. It helps solidify concerns I have with just putting people in positions that don't seem authentic or genuine.
Yeah, you also found out a deeper relationship. Like he said that the guy he turned in, which was her brother, was a man that he would follow to the end.
Oh, right.
So like he was part of it.
Yep.
But over circumstances changed his view, where he had to help out Fedra because he needed drugs for his brother.
And they spelled that out
leukemia.
too. Yeah, they spelled it out again. They dip into the terminal illness thing, and you know, but they, in creating that situation, they do another thing that makes the game really interesting, and it actually has a mirror point with the end of the game here for Kathleen. Not that she's in the game. What I mean by that is, Henry makes the decisions to do what he does to save Sam, which put him in a morally gray space of betraying a friend and a mentor and a leader. And then Kathleen, the domino as it falls, is in a morally gray space because she wants vengeance for her brother and goes to cruel and, you know, immeasurable, awful ends to do that. In this particular episode, she basically guns down a room, or has a room full of collaborators, gunned down and says, you know, burn the bodies if it's cleaner and quicker or whichever. But then I got to thinking about that while I'm watching the scene. Are her actions really any different than those of us that have played the game? And I'm not going to spoil anything too much down the line for the show because they're going to take liberties here. At the end of the game, it's basically Joel that has to do a bunch of awful effing things to save Ellie. And both of these people are human beings, Joel and Kathleen. They're both humans that are put in a position that a lot of us talk about in real life when we say, oh, you know, if somebody hurt my kid, there's no stopping me. So they're basically just giving you characters doing that and putting you in a position to have to reconcile whether or not you'd be okay with their actions. Like, how far is too far? And there's probably not a right answer to that question.
Well, also, if you later in the episode, you have her giving her little speech and about, you know, him doing what he had to do to save his brother, and it's like, well, you're technically doing the same thing. You're gambling all your resources to find this one guy because your brother died.
Great
How
point.
far does the world revolve around your brother?
That's what I mean, that there's these mirror points that just kind of reflect all of these different things through the perceived lens of, well, who's the good guy in this episode? Not just protagonist, antagonist. Is anybody really morally good in this show? It's very Game of Thronesian, where the only morally good person in Game of Thrones ever, I think, was like Ed Stark, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Brand the Broken.
I mean, yeah, but he's not really human and shit like that at the end. So, I mean, does he really care? I mean, but not even Jon Snow is 100% like the morally, like, paladin kind of character. I mean, he hangs Ollie for F's sake. You know what I mean? I mean, Ollie did shank him, so I mean, I guess that's understandable. But not to go too far off track, back to The Last of Us, I think you're right. They take these morally ambiguous situations and they're really doing them up well, and it's making it very fun and engaging to watch. You want to talk about runtimes being an hour 7? This felt like it was 30 minutes to me. It just moved. The whole thing just moved from bangs to bullets right through the whole thing without giving you much of a breather, and I thought it was good. Even the early part of the episode that starts off in flashback form to like 10, they don't tell you they're doing it, you just, you're not stupid, you watch it, that it's 10 days leading into when they meet Joel and Ellie. So you see that Sam and Henry are waiting on the doctor who was murdered by Kathleen in episode 4. He's giving them a safe house. He's collaborating with them, the collaborators, because that was the doctor treating Sam.
And he's doing what he's doing because he's a doctor. He's there to save lives. He doesn't care whose side he's on. He's saving lives. That's what a doctor does.
Yep. But I thought that when we get Sam into, I keep saying Sam first like he's the older brother. When we get Henry first, Henry just seems like the younger brother name to me. I don't know why. We get Henry first, and right away I like this character. Right away, instantly, right? Not only is the actor good, he's very expressive. He's got like this low and fast way of talking, which is kind of it's like he knows what he has to do, knows what he has to say, but he's still unsure of it. So there's a certain apprehension to his decision making. But you can tell right away he's smart because he's rationing the food and taking account. He's checking troop movements out the windows so he can know when it's time to move. He has a decent plan, to get out of the city that he's reconned for himself over the weeks and years that he's been there. You know what I mean? He's obviously a major, major caretaking influence in his brother's life. We get that. It was a really good scene where the little kid's scared, and to make him not scared, he paints the orange over his face like the superhero character that Sam draws. And I was like, dude, right here, dude. There you dude, that's Big Brother moves number 1, 2, and 3. And I loved him. I also loved the actor that plays Sam. So an interesting change from the game is they did the Sam character up as being deaf and nonverbal and being unable to speak. That's not how it is in the game at all. And I thought that was
another layer of difficulty to surviving in this type of world.
Hands down. I mean, we can tie that in as a medical professional. I can tie that in a real world context where when people were wearing masks for 2 years, I had about a bazillion patients that were deaf or hard of hearing and exclusively reading lips who didn't know sign language, who didn't know what to do for 2 years. Because literally you couldn't talk to somebody, especially that first 6 months. If you pulled your mask down to talk to a deaf person in those 6 months, some other jackass nearby was likely to have a conniption fit and not stay in their lanes. I can tell you that firsthand. So I agree with you 100%. It was an added layer of difficulty for the character. But guys, when we're talking about changing things in world to make them more inclusive while still being well done and organic to the story, it was that. It was 100% that. Like it didn't subtract anything from what they gave us by having the role written for somebody that wasn't verbal. Like, they did everything they needed to do with the sign, with the gestures, facial expressions, everything. I thought it was great.
Well, they brought in a actor who actually is deaf.
Right.
And he does
clearly
speak with ASL.
Yep.
And they brought in an ASL specialist for set to, communicate with him and then teach the other actors. And that was one of the things I saw from behind the scenes is that Ellie, the actress who plays Ellie,
Bella
and the
Ramsey.
actor who plays Henry,
Yep.
they said they both caught on to ASL.
Yeah, I hope they didn't catch on to ALS.
Adeus, yeah.
Nobody wants to
they
be
caught on to it like immediately because they were so driven, and then the crew all took time to learn it too, so they all could communicate and stuff like that. So I thought it was really cool.
Dude, that's so cool. And you love to hear stars that are that invested in the product that they go that extra mile to become, whether or not they were clinically fluent, I don't know. But when Ellie and Henry are working with Sam, going through their various, sign language motions and gestures and everything, it looked authentically real. Now, somebody could probably critique it as to being not picture perfect. I'm not here to break that down. Neither is King Z. Neither of us, I'm pretty sure, know ASL firsthand like that or are certified. But it looked good, and it convinced me that each of them knew what they were talking about. So I thought that was a really cool way to get that kind of integration to another method of giving story to an audience. I thought that was really cool. I was definitely all about that.
The one thing I say that they did miss with it is that because you saw that she knew a basic amount of ASL.
ASL.
Sorry.
God damn it, you're about to
ASL.
get dyslexic. Can you be dyslexic
Yep.
for ASL?
Yeah. And I mean, Joel was there, and he noticed, and he was picking up on things like a couple of the, and Henry knows it because he has to communicate with Sam. They could have used that for nonverbal communications. They were trying to move stealthily out of there, but they still used verbal cues and stuff like that.
I think the further they got away from Kansas City, they were rolling back the silence protocol. And we've seen them do that, like when we pointed out in other episodes. Like, I thought they were under constant threat of death. Why are they talking while they're walking down the road? Anyway, so there's shades of that maybe they hit their limit for what they wanted to sign and what they didn't want. Before we move deeper into the episode, though, I wanted to remind everybody to lace up the gloves, ring the bell, sub to the channel, por favor. Drop us some comments on tonight's video. If you don't mind, we'd love to discuss anything you guys want to discuss in episode 5 or anything, up until episode 5, or predictions for anything going forward. Please do us the favor. We'd appreciate it. But one of the things I wanted to talk about the show, if we can roll it back to the very beginning, can we talk about the hyper-violent fall of Kansas City, Ephedra, whatever the Ephedrine? Dude, that was some pretty shocking stuff. Like, and very cleverly shot, where there was sometimes violence front and center in the frame, but then there was always, because I looked, there was stuff in the background that was chilling.
Yeah, like them lifting someone up to hang them. You saw that in the background through like glass and everything, and them just shooting people. You see the fire. They use the fire to show the chaos as the camera pans through.
Hell on earth! It was absolute hell on earth. The one that got me the worst was they had one dude in like the dog collar with the pole on it, and then someone else just brained him with a bottle, and then I think shot him when he was down or something. That was bad. And then the Fedra truck, the resistance truck was driving a body that had been punctured by like 19 different knives. So you got like blades sticking out of him as the body's being dragged. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, this is scary shit now. I think we're there. You made your point. Like, this is a really fucking uncomfortable scene to watch in all the right good ways for dystopian zombie kind of flicks and movie shows. So I was all about that. I like that a lot. They did good there. Set the tone.
Yeah, they took the scene from the, like, if you want to tie it into real life, it was tied into the events that happened in Mogadishu. They made a movie about it, Black Hawk Down.
Somalia,
you can see where when they dragged the pilot's body through the streets and stuff like that. Yeah. So they based it off of true events of what people are like when that's human
behavior.
Power isn't checked.
Well, I mean, Henry has a great line to Joel at one point when, Joel's like, we heard Kansas City, Fedra was rough. And Henry tells him, when you rape, torture, and murder people for 20 years, you know what happens when they get a chance to do it back? Like, they do it. That's human behavior, cross culture, cross time period, sadly, cross everything. We can be a miserable lot when we're not, lifting each other up, which is kind of sad, because we can do some really good shit if we just knock that shit off. But yeah, the beginning set the tone really well. It seemed like there was an evolution, and I thought they were going to do more with it, but when we get to the end of the episode, we see it's not going anywhere. It looked for a quick second like there was a fracture between Kathleen and Perry very early on in this episode, where she again is so dead-ass focused on finding Henry, where you know what I mean? Like they're focused on finding him, but he's like, yeah, but we have these other 55 things that are also important, and she kind of ices him a little. And she's like, yeah, he's not the 7th most important thing for me to do. We got to get this kind of together. And that's where they have the speech about, her brother, and, he wanted forgiveness for Henry. And Kathleen's like, yeah, no, they got him killed. He's going to die now. And it kind of painted her in an even more chilling way than she had been portrayed. But I thought they were hopefully doing some kind of fracture within the group of bad guys for a quick minute, but that was a story thread that didn't go with that. But it looked like it was heading there. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more of that.
Yeah, and you always trying to have fractions and rubbing the wrong way.
It's called conflict. But we like that as writers. Yeah. It's good stuff. It keeps you on your toes because you never know if the second in command, like in that crappy movie The Postman, at the end of that, is big bad guy's number 2 going to be the one to shoot him in the back at like the moment of truth because he's seen enough. You know what I mean? Like that's a thing that happens in fiction quite frequently. That's Vader and the Emperor kind of thing. Spoiler alerts, even though Return of the Jedi came out in what, 86, 87? If you haven't seen it yet, I can't help you. 83? I don't know. It's been a minute.
I think it was 83.
83?
Yeah.
So there's always those moments where, Big Bad turns because he's seen enough and, puts ultimate Big Bad down. So I thought maybe we were going to get more of that, but that was mostly just Kathleen's moment to kind of do her backstory, a little bit of exposition. Well performed, so I didn't care that it was kind of a pump the brakes on the action of the episode because it better defined her. It added context. It was well executed, so I didn't mind. Did you like her character any more or less this week? Because she'd been grating on my nerves now since we met her.
No, I mean, there was no real... They tried everything they could to make you dislike her, which is the purpose of her characters, for you to dislike. You're supposed to be rooting for Henry and Sam. Right. So everything about her, you're supposed to hate. They tried the whole redeeming factor with her being in her room to tell this story, but then it's just like the whole layer of her humanity has been pretty much cut off, where it's like, I must get revenge for my brother. Nothing else matters.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing they didn't do in that line of thought was like have her literally like kick the dog in the alley. You know what I mean? Like we talk about those beats and the save the cat kind of beat sheet kind of thing. Like the only thing she didn't do was literally like throw a bag of kittens into a lake or something otherwise awful. And I thought that was a good scene until they hit this. They hit this one little line, right? It's in the chat with Kathleen and Perry in that same scene in her bedroom. Guys, to paint the picture, she's kind of like gone away from the group for a couple hours. She had gone missing for a little bit. She had gone to her old childhood home in Kansas City, and she's kind of explaining to Perry that when her brother was alive, when they lived there together, if ever she was scared of something like thunder or gunfire outside, he was the one that reassured her. Like he took care of her as a child when she was scared, and had told her that the room was just a wooden box that they were always safe in if they were together. It was fairly touching, even though the actress delivers it with this really weird, like, psychopath kind of like tone of voice and inflection, her always with the deadpan face. So it's not a completely humanizing moment for her, but to King Z's point, I think that the writers didn't want you to have that for her. Like they definitely wanted you to not enjoy watching her be on screen because she's their version of like evil incarnate so far in the show. But the line I get hung up on that scene though, it comes from Perry, where it says, everybody loved your brother. He was a great man. He was the leader, this, and this. But he got nothing done and nothing changed until you took over. So we're with you. And I had to pause for a minute and I'm like, okay, so is this the thing that's going to get people to say the show, this episode has gone woke this week? Because it's a woman doing a job better than a man who everybody, even on the show, says everybody loved. Like, so what made her better? Like things changed because she's ruthless, or like what?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Ruthless aggression that came out of her base, that was driven from her for her brother's death. Because, I mean, you had a woman leader of the Fireflies in Boston, and they weren't doing anything. They didn't make any change there.
Yeah.
It was still the same. More people were being hung because of their actions. They were turning on each other. It had nothing to do with the female part. It was just there was someone who took over, who was ready to take it to the next level.
That's a good explanation. I appreciate the context of that, because I'm trying to untrain myself from seeing the woke boogie monster and everything. I know it's still out there in certain pieces of fiction, but the detector for this show so far has been low. But this is the first time that like my needle was like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of flipped up a little bit, where I was like, well, if everybody loved the first guy, how did nothing work out? But we've also seen Kathleen's ruthless aggression, as you put it, in play, in practice. So they've shown us before they told us, and I think that lends credibility to what you're saying that they were doing. So I think that's a really good point.
It's also supposed to lock her in as the leader. Like, they have her back. Like, we might disagree on a few things. Like, dating Henry's like ninth on me, but we're with you. So what you tell us to do, we're following you, because you're the one who brought change and got our oppressors off our backs.
Yeah, and you can't argue with. I guess you can't argue with the result. I mean, there's, again, if we're doing real world crossovers, I know we're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole of, like, you know, world global history and things like that, but those tend to people, after they affect change, they typically find themselves swinging sooner or later after the movement's had its moment and affected change. It tends to end not well for those type of transitional leaders in disaster, emergency, or, you know, warfare kind of situations, if we can keep it bland and family friendly despite my usual Tourette's of the mouth. But yeah, so okay, that was a key scene I thought right there, and I wanted to touch on that real quick. So right after they have that scene, we get more of kind of there's quick sets of scenes as the survivor group, I'm calling them, you know, Joel, Ellie, Sam, and Henry. They're working their way through the tunnel. It's brief. It's not as tense as I thought it would be. It had pretty decent setup where kind of Henry's mapping out on a sketch. He's on Notepad, you know, the highways are here and here. We're here. We need to be here. We're going to do this, this, and this. And then Joel's kind of like, yeah, that's a great plan, though. But so you're telling me you want us to go through like a tunnel that Kansas City Federal locked all the infected in, and nobody's been down there in 3 years? Oh, and your source for the tunnel being safe is the Fedra guy that you screwed over. Okay.
Yep.
Solid plan, bro. Let's run with that shit. So I got a kick out of that setup scene. I thought that was good. I thought that was that was a good bit of footage right there.
Yeah, and then we go quickly into them down in the shelter, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Because they explain that some people went underground when the infected happened, and then like they're like, well, what happened to them? And it's like they didn't obey their own rules, and they probably got infected and died.
Now what King Z is talking about right here, guys, he means it very literally. The setup to the scene he's talking about is the survivors are kind of walking towards a door in a maintenance tunnel that kind of is, you know, in a series of maintenance subservice sections, things like that under Kansas City. And the outer part of the door has been done up in a very preschool kindergarten kind of way. Bright yellows, you know, there's hand-drawn pictures of kids playing, things like that. There's a rainbow, you know, there's blue skies and things. And Sam goes to bump his way into the room real quick because he sees the bright colors that he's painted with, you know, in his own time. And Joel's like, whoa, and kind of like bodies him out of the way so he can check it. When they get inside to the shelter, what King Z is referring to is there's literally a blackboard on the wall with like the chalk written or whiteboard marker rules that are like rules for the house. And it's, you know, it's all your standard stuff that's there. You know, ask for the password, all this other nice kind of stuff and everything else. Basically designed to keep you, not the Wi-Fi password, like literally the knock on the door password for safety is, you know, some Schindler's List stuff. You guys are probably too young for the reference to that, probably, but who knows. So Joel engages his sense of humor, kind of, but it's a little dark, but he's probably right. You know, but the survivors there either got infected and left, or they had to leave, you know, because they were chased out. There are no bodies in there. There's no infected in there. There's no corpses of infected in there. So it was a safe room for the short run. And they use that time that they're in there to good effect too, because they show Ellie getting closer to Sam. They're playing soccer. They're laughing and reading comic books and kind of, you know, they're not buddy. They're kind of linking up. And then Henry and Joel are kind of having the chats about, you know, guys like us have to do what we have to do. You know, I suppose if you collaborated, you know, to save your brother, it's okay. It's not okay, but I'm not as angry as I was because at first Joel, oh, I don't work with rats. We're not going with you. You know what I mean? They had a little, there was some friction there about, you know, like bro code kind of status for like honor stuff. But they kind of had that. It was a quick heart to heart, but it was effective.
And if you see the two pairings, the two groups of two, they are a mirror image of each other. You have the protector, and then you have the protectorate.
Yep.
So they're kind of in the same role. They kind of broke off into that their peer group, you could say.
Wolves and cubs. Yes, they absolutely did. There was
scene.
Run it.
Yeah, in this scene, we get the name of the episode, Endure and Survive, based off a comic book series that both Sam and Ellie enjoy.
Also in
game.
game.
I think that's the name.
In game, it's an in-game reference. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and like she has like 4 of them, and he has like 2 of them.
Yep. And I think they were also the issues that the other was missing. Like if you counted the sequence out, like she said, I have like 4, 6, and 11, and he was like, I have 5, 7, and 10 or some crap. Like I think
5
there was
and
something.
8.
Yeah, I think there was something to the numbers. I think just about how they were interlocking parts, like they could be friends that way. So they had that moment, and then like you were saying, Joel and Henry had a similar moment where they kind of resolved their differences, like I mentioned. But then Henry drops on him, you might not be her father, but you're somebody's father. I can tell. Like there's just no doubt about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they had that bit of chat there, and then they sit it out long enough, and then Joel decides it's time to move on, and then this is where the episode gets big for Augie. As we're akin to
This
saying.
is what I would call the calm before the storm.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is as calm as this show's gonna get. Because I think everything after this is basically a series of nut punches after the other if they speed it up.
Yeah.
They basically get out the tunnel, no events, no video game plays, no through the vent systems or anything funky like that. And they get into kind of the suburb beyond Kansas City, and this is just like the game too. It opens exactly like the game, where like the cutscene ends over your shoulder, and you're kind of looking down this road that has burned out vehicles in like a residential setting, maybe on a cul-de-sac or something, or just on a side street. And they're kind of la-di-da, we're just going to do this, and there's nobody here, and why don't we have our flashlights on? Sam asks, and Henry tells him that Joel said no, because we don't want to draw attention. And then like 8 seconds later, high-power rifle shot, BAM! So,
Yep.
Survivor's got to duck and cover, and this is the stuff I like. I was just saying this to my significant other after the episode. Like, if this show manages to take 4 or 5 at moments like this, right, and lift it directly from the game, and then just craft a scene right around that, they've got a winner. They can literally do anything. They can give me Bill and Frank in episode 3. They already cashed that chip in. But when I know you're capable of lifting these other things and planting them directly in, you buy yourself an awful lot of like social credit on the show to be able to play with changing some of the lore here and there. This shootout at the beginning, right out of the game, they're pinned down. Joel has to leave the kids. Henry's, who knows how old, he's 20, 22. He looks really young. Maybe not even 22, like older teen. So Joel's going to run the flank route to go around back and save the kids from getting rifle shot, because, Sam and Henry try to run. They narrowly avoid getting shot, and then they scramble back to cover. Joel flanks around, gets a position, gets upstairs, and finally in the show, we get another little bit of Pedro Pascal doing a little bit of acting. Because so far, I'm not a big fan of the Joel rendition we're getting. It's very robotic and monotone in just about everything, except when he's allowed to actually engage his emotions, like telling the dad jokes and actually laughing every now and then. The character in the game is not a machine. Like, he actually has a personality.
They did play into that in the game.
Did they?
When she had him at gunpoint, and it's like, he's like, you don't sound very convinced at the very beginning. And it's like, no, he just has that.
He just has an asshole voice. Yeah. Dude, dude, for real. Dude, that was a great. I forgot
so
all about that.
So they did play on it in the writing of it.
Yep.
So.
And again, I'll use this next couple minutes to just talk about the. I'll freeze frame where we are in the episode discussion. Let's just talk Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. The Joel character, like I was saying, very robotic. In the scene he's in here, he gets the drop on the shooter that's kind of hosing them down with the rifle. And he basically begs the guy, he's like, please don't do it. Just put the gun down, slide it to me. I'm going to go, wait up here an hour, and that's all you have to do. And the old guy's like, he considers it for about a 16th of a second. And then the screen cuts abruptly back to Ellie, and you hear a gunshot, but it's the Joel's gun and not the rifle sound. And you're like, fuck, dude. But Pedro Pascal in that scene, the facial expression, he's begging this dude not to make him kill him. You know what I mean? Like, he does not want to do it. But he's forced by circumstance to do it.
Right before that, where he's talking to her, he's like, do you trust me?
Oh, yeah.
It's the first time that they're having that connection, because she's like, then you'll die running off. You're going to get shot. And then we're going to get shot.
That was pretty good.
Like, do you trust me?
Yep. That was good stuff. So this whole section plays out well. Bella Ramsey has moments as Ellie in that scene, really good. She has a couple of scenes later we're going to talk about, during the chaos that unfolds, and then the resolution to the episode, where I'm like, okay, all right, she might not look like Ellie. She might not be classically attractive or whatever anybody else's criticisms were of her, but she's fine. She's doing great. Like I don't begrudge her this role. Like I might have been skeptical up front. Matter of fact, she's doing more for me right now than he is in terms of the presentation of the character. But you made a good point last week where you said it might be a direction choice to have him just perform this way. And I gotta say that Pedro Pascal isn't getting a fair chance to play the role then, because the character's not supposed to be a T-800 Terminator. He's just not. He's the strong silent type, but he's not humorless. He's not gutless. He doesn't lack not agency, but like this quick thinking on his feet, follow through to like initiate action or a plan. Right now, he's still very much, except for going around and flanking the guy, other people are telling him to do things all the time. And I don't like that so far.
I did see a little bit of it, but I also did see that he is very, like, he's more, I would say, composed. I don't think he's being told what to do. I think he's more
the character, not the actor. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the character. The character is not being told what to do, but he's kind of like me. He's thinking it through. So it looks like he's just stonewalling or listening to what they're saying, but he's more of, I would say, composed.
I mean, that's a fair adjective. I'd say that's a good description. I'll try to apply that lens next week and see if it makes taking that pill a little bit easier. But that's probably more fair. But what do you think of her though? What do you think of Ellie or Bella Ramsey? Is she getting better and better?
I think Bella Ramsey's got skills.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch for her in the future. She's gonna. I just see her taking home some trophies here soon.
All right.
Because she has some skills. Yeah, she's still learning, and kid actors are kid actors.
She's like she's 20 though. I think she's not a kid.
She's still a kid actor.
Before 30, to the industry.
Before you're 35, you're still kids. Okay, you're all just kids.
You're saying that to the guy with the wall of superheroes, Mortal Kombat characters, and video game stuff over his shoulder. But okay, there you go. But she's grown on me a lot. So I like seeing. You know what I like most about watching her in this episode is she's getting to play off of somebody that isn't Joel and who does have a better back and forth with her, being closer to her age. Even though the Sam character is obviously much younger than she is, she's engaging the playfulness that Joel isn't engaging with, except for the one dad joke kind of bit that they had. So I thought that was cool. So I think you're right. I think she's got some game. I think she's gonna do fine.
And I think with her character really didn't have a childhood.
Right.
She was an orphaned and then put right into Fedra school where they were teaching her how to be a soldier.
Yep, pretty much.
So she's never really had a childhood. So she's getting to explore that side of her character. Bella Ramsey is embracing that and being that childlike wonder into things, stuff she's never seen before because she's been living in the QZ her whole life. Mm-hmm. And she never really had a true childhood. She never had toys or stuff like that. And then she started to find like the comic book. She started, this is what kids are supposed to do. And then playing with the cars and enjoying the world around her. Yeah, I think she's portraying that as someone who's never seen it before. She's pulling it off great.
I think that having said that, I think, we talked a bunch about the episode 3 detour. I think the only other likely detour we get would be an episode inspired by, I don't know if you played this through in the game, the DLC that came out that kind of goes into how and when she got bit, where her and the character that became her would-be girlfriend, they broke into a shopping mall and they were having like a day outside the wall kind of thing. And then the friend gets bit. I don't think it's the friend that bites her. I think they just both get bit at some point. The friend dies, and then that's when Ellie realizes that she's immune. But I wouldn't mind that as a total detour from the show, because it's Ellie centric, and B, if they stick to the actual events in that DLC for the game, it's basically like it's a self-contained like Resident Evil story where they're stuck in the mall after the way they get in, I think, becomes blocked by infected, and they have to find they and then her alone have to find a way out and back to like the Fedra Academy where they sneak out from. I think I had that right. But so I wouldn't mind an episode like that.
We're definitely going to get some flashback of Ellie or pre-Ellie. Yep. Because Ashley Johnson, we haven't seen her yet, and she plays Ellie's mom, and we talked about that in the pre-episode that we did.
I forgot all about that until you mentioned that,
Yep, we still haven't seen Ashley Johnson, so we know that's coming.
So we'll put a pin in that for future discussion. Then that works for me. So we're at that scene. This is the end of the episode, guys. We're at that last scene, the last two scenes really. This is the big action piece that comes up. Joel basically he greases the old guy, but before he can bring the others into cover, he realizes he's made a grave mistake. And this was awesome because, dude, I felt it in the pit of my stomach. He hears radio squelch up by the shooter's rifle that he picked up. And it's Kathleen's voice. So he moves over the guy's sleeping bag or his coat or whatever it was. And sure as shit, there's a walkie-talkie. It's on. And basically Kathleen's like, Anthony, just hold them off. We're on our way. We'll be there in like 2 minutes. Like they're coming now. Like this isn't like we'll be there by dawn. They're en route or en route, however you say it. And then sure as shit, in the next 2 seconds, you hear engines rumble. You see floodlights on the horizon as their vehicles are moving in. And all Joel can do is yell, run, out the window.
Yep.
Dude, I need to take a drink of water. Read our crew into what happens next here. You do your thing. Give me a break.
So we get into it, and you cut quickly to Kathleen and her vehicle. And she's on the radio with the front vehicle, and she's like, it's full of cars. He's like, that's why you're driving lead, which I think is a great funny line. Like, do what your truck's designed to do.
Right.
But this, you were talking about Pedro Pascal's acting. The fear on his face looking out that window
Chilling.
was genuine.
Yeah.
And then they start to run, and then they come pull up. They're trying to hide. And then he's there just rapidly, just trying to shoot that lead truck.
From the game again, because that's what happens after. Just to interrupt quickly, that's what happens in the game after you put the sniper down. You get his gun, and then you have to cover Ellie at a stretch when Kingsley gets to it.
And he's shooting the lead vehicle, and like he's high, he's low. He hits the I don't even know what you would call it, the thing that says run on the front of it, which is kind of funny.
The cow moving off the train track.
The snow plow
I know there's
thing,
a word for it. What's the thing? The cattle, not a cattle prod. What's the thing? I don't know what it's called. The cow scraper.
But or
it's basically a snow plow.
The inverted snow plow. and it's throwing cars, and he's there, and he's hitting that like he's now dead eye shot. So that's another great play into that, as we've talked about that before.
Yep.
But and then
not a superhero.
And then you see the inexperience of Ellie, because they cut down to them running, and she's there turning around and just throwing off random shots at I don't know what she was shooting
with
at,
her
just
revolver
rounds.
Shoulder high into its like grill in the plow.
Yeah, just
hoping
trying
for
to
it.
do something.
Yep. But I like it.
That 1 in a million shot.
Yep. Golden bullet not happening here.
Yeah. And then finally, it gets close enough, I think, because Joel's older, his eyesight isn't all there either. But as it gets closer, he can get locked on better, gets that shot through the window into the driver. Driver peers off, he crashes into a house, and somehow something explodes, because that's what happened in movies.
Well,
not in real life, that's what happens in movies.
Apparently, Ellie's .38 caliber revolver pierced the snowplow, pierced the grill, pierced the engine block, went through that, ruptured a fuel line, which then leaked diesel all over the ground, and then boom.
Yeah, you can throw a match into diesel and it's not going to explode, right? It'll actually go out.
Dude, if you tell people that, literally none of the stuff we write for the rest of our lives can incorporate that as a strategy. You just basically removed like the modern day Holdo maneuver from all of our combat and escape scenes. Don't be a dick. Don't do that to me. I need the flaming car. All right? You've been warned. Warning!
All right. Sidetrack. The best part of this scene that I've seen in a movie that portrays it accurately is 21 Jump Street, where you have like it runs into like a truck full of propane and like nothing happens, and then it runs into like this construction thing and nothing happens, and then they hit like this little chicken truck and big explosion. Like, wow, that's what exploded.
Dude, that movie was a lot funnier than people gave it credit for. A lot funnier.
That's
Jonah
more
Hill.
true life. But we needed a reason to have fire, and fire makes everything better in a scene. If you don't have a good plot, throw some fire and smoke on it.
But you know what else the fire accomplishes in that scene, right? is it gives them a backdrop to slow the bad guys down so the good guys can get to the cover that they're cowering behind for the next 5 minutes until all hell breaks loose. Now, this is another good Kathleen scene right here where she's basically, this chick's not here to F around, right? Because she knows Sam, Henry, and Joel and everybody are there. Henry basically is trying to bargain and saying, listen, I'll come out. You got to let the kids go. And she's like, no, not gonna. The girl's with the guy that killed Brian or whatever his name was in the laundromat, or where, it's like the initial shootout between Joel and her group. And Henry, well, he's with you. Doesn't matter if he's 10 or whatever. And that's the nail in the coffin for the character being irredeemable at that point. It's like, no, we're actually not gonna, like, he's going down too, so you may as well just come out and make this kind of quick. And Henry does. Like, he's like, all right, Ellie, like, get ready. When it's time, run. Like, this is your responsibility to take care of Sam now. And this is a great scene. It was goosebumps for something so small. Like, Ellie and Sam lock hands. So they're going down together or they're running together. That's just how this is going to be. There's no questions anymore, right? Henry gets up and he walks out. Kathleen says something about, you shouldn't have tried to tempt fate, because they had their little back and forth. And then she draws with like there's no ceremony here. There's no get on your knees and atone for my brother's death. Like, no, she draws her, whatever it is, some kind of pistol. And King Z's truck that exploded is now starting to tilt and veer. And it's on this really weird angle that, unless this house has like a sub-basement, which is probably uncommon for where they are, it's entering the ground sinkhole style. And then you hear it. Or should I say you hear them. Turns out the underground not as clear as they were led to believe. And about an eighth of a second after that, Infected comes sprawling out of that burning hole, right? Like
Full
it's
speed
Emergence
ahead.
Day in Gears of War. They just come in waves, and they're fast effing moving here. Big fast.
Yes.
Like, it looked faster. I know it wasn't, but I think it was a numbers thing. But it was intense.
The whole fire ant zombie type rush in.
Yep.
And then the gunfire erupted. Because you even saw Joel. Like, Joel was taking cover, because they said keep him covered, because they knew he was up in the tower.
Yep.
And then he was going to come out, try to fire, and come back. And then he just stopped and paused, like, what's going on? Because everybody's looking at the house. And then you had the great, like, from the ground scene.
Yep.
Like, you saw them, like, it was like, the camera was like, I would say on a hi-hat, which is a very small stand. And then had them come running at the camera as it stayed still, which was really a great shot.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about that too. Go ahead. Unless you were good.
Yeah, get that intensity of them coming out. But that's not the end.
No,
There's
hold on.
more.
No, not yet. Dude, I love that scene because when we're looking from Joel's vantage point down, you've got on the one side the infected are coming out of the fire ant hole, right? But then on the other side you have Kathleen's group. They're not in any particular formation or anything like that, but they're all obviously looking now at the danger that's emerging, right? They open up all kind of gunfire. Full auto. I think the one dude has like a Barrett from like World War II. He's firing an M60 or something. He's firing it off the hip. And Perry's going crazy with his M4 or whatever he's got. And they're just dropping lead everywhere. Oh, there's spewing brass everywhere in this scene. And it's not enough.
Yes.
It's not even close to being enough. They sent ostensibly their whole crew to go get these 4 people. So whatever's back at base is now boned. Kansas City's done.
Yep.
No way they're making that out. The leader's there. Her number 2 is there. They brought their 5 big trucks, tons of guns, tons of ordnance. They got everything, right? They're getting jacked by regular, like, level 1 fast-moving zombies. And again, much like I thought this scene was a good mirror of the first scene in the show. We get these random pockets of violent chaos just decorating the scene, all these places. So if you stare at one too long, you miss out on some of the other things that are happening. Because people are getting jacked in all kinds of like sick ways by zombies. They're getting slashed up. They're getting just overrun and drawn down. You can't see what happens to them. There's one guy who's firing, and I think he gets hit by like 5 of them at once standing up, and he's just basically flayed out as they're just like hacking him all up. It's nasty, right? They're getting it everywhere. Sam and Henry make a run for an upturned truck to take cover, right?
Yeah.
Ellie gets separated somehow. and then she takes cover in a separate vehicle. And this is the thing I wanted to mention because I love this because it was just creepy. So Ellie crawls through a window to like an SUV or something. She's in there. She thinks she's safe. But one of them follows her in, right? And she's trying to be quiet and she's trying not to, attract attention. But then it screams and then it's on. The way this thing contorted to go over the seat like backwards, I was like, oh my God, dude, that is... Zombie shit doesn't bother me. That bothered me because I'm like, that's not a human being. It's not. They had to make a real zombie in real life to do this. I'm sorry. They went over to CERN, right? They got some extra, viral agent of unknown origin, infected the clone from CERN, and brought it in real life. I don't know. It was awful because it backbends, dude. It backbends and twists to come over the seat, and it's relentless in that tight little area of a car. All kinds of movement, purposeful, and all designed to get to Ellie's face. I loved it.
You did notice what type of infected that was.
Was it a clicker?
It was a clicker.
Okay,
see,
I wasn't. See, that's what I thought, and that's what threw me because of the size. I'm like, the head looks like it's clicker-ish, and I thought I heard the sound, but the whole scene is flooded with automatic gunfire, cries of pain and help, and death and dying and explosions and fire. I was like, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, dude. Good pickup right there.
Here's another part that a lot of people probably didn't pick up on with them coming out of the hole. You see the level 1s coming out of the hole first, and then the clickers behind them.
Yep.
So they're using the level 1s to take down the fire, and then they had a plan because, oh wait, there's more.
There's definitely more, but not yet because I got one more thing.
Are we talking about the sniper in the tower?
Yeah, well, sniper in the tower part I touched on because it was good because that's a part from the game where Ellie has to traverse like the battlefield to get from, right to left or whatever to Joel so they can, get with Sam and Henry and Bale. So Joel's up there doing his thing. The other cool part, and because I don't remember if the game had it or not, so don't quote me on this one. I don't remember if that was one of those dual scenes where you do the Joel part and then you play the Ellie part because she has to rescue Sam and Henry from their cover position underneath the truck. They're basically kicking away at zombies that are grabbing at him and shit. But she pulls the knife and she goes to work. She gets across that battlefield.
She does in this game.
Yep.
Which she does in the show. That's what she does in the show, not in the game, but in the show.
She gets over there and gives them the quick double jab and then, pulls one of them away, and then Sam and Henry come out and then they kind of reconvene on Joel. They're making their way out, and that's when I'm cueing King Z in for the big showdown.
We really died at the, was it the Bill Mays? But wait, there's more.
There's more. I was going. What was that? Stu from Scream? Was that Matthew Lillard from Scream? But wait, there's more. Like that whole thing. I think that's old.
I was thinking of Bill Mays. The
Billy Mays. Yeah, it was the ShamWow.
Yeah, Billy Mays. Yeah.
I was
he
going
wasn't
10
ShamWow guy.
He was the ShamWow guy.
No, he wasn't ShamWow. ShamWow guy was the skinny dude.
Oh yeah, you're right, dude. Billy Mays, OxyClean.
Yeah,
OxyClean was Billy Mays. I think they're both dead though.
There's more.
But wait, there's more. If you order now, that's a promo we should run.
Oh yeah, because Billy Mays did more cocaine in the Wolf of Wall Street.
Dude, good lord, truckloads. But anyway, the more King Z is talking about is what the game references as the phase 3, the level 3,
the level
big
3,
dog,
the big dog, the one that
dog.
takes about 300 rounds to take down in the game. Like he is extremely difficult to kill in the game.
Yeah.
And
so,
he comes out.
Describe
you got
him.
Full Hawk mode. So this guy. So you have the mutation of him being bigger, stronger.
Yeah.
Like you're pretty much fully controlled by the fungus at this time, and it's like a living entity of the fungus.
Yep.
And it's straight Hulk mode at this time.
Yeah. It's big. It is big.
If you ever see something that being the Winter Wolf actually worked on to write, and I have a book and a 10-episode screenplay that I'm putting together, this was the idea of my main bad guys, was this type of character. So he is pretty much like, you see him, he takes shots and he's like, what? Like, he's like, let me take it off, shake it off and come over there. And this is where we see the demise of Perry, where he gets ripped in half. by this fun little thing.
Not ripped in half, decapitated.
Decapitated.
He gets sub-zeroed.
Yeah.
In a
rips it off.
gruesome display. But there's more. Leading into that, Perry goes out like an absolute boss, though. Because you can see he is dedicated to the cause. Because he's laying down fire on this thing. And he tells Kathleen, get to cover, go, run. And then he kind of pushes her back a little. And he turns right back around to go at the level 3, the phase 3 thing. He's fresh mag, rips it full auto. He's dry in like a 1/10 of a second. And then, dude, he gets it bad. But again, the show is very clever with its use of violence in a way that I don't think Walking Dead, or not that Walking Dead didn't, but I think this is where they're trying not to be Walking Dead. When Perry gets, upended from his head and his spine, it's not quite center of screen and it's set further back than right in your face. It's kind of like a medium range kind of shot.
It's a little out of focus too. Like they shut down the depth of field, so you're locked on her, and just everything happy in the background is happy in the background, but it's not completely in focus.
Yeah,
but you just see enough where you know what's happening.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty good because that then transitions, right? I think we move from that to the scene where Ellie saves Sam and Henry, because then as the 4 of them are making their escape into like the path through the woods in the backyard to get away from danger, Kathleen makes her final appearance. And she basically has the 4 of them at gunpoint for like, an eye blink. And then again, out of focus a little bit over her shoulder, we see the reason Joel hasn't turned the gun on her right quick. Because little clicker kid hops up on the tombstone. I think it was a tombstone, ironically.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yep, it was up on a tombstone. And then absolutely just pounces, like Left 4 Dead, like pouncer style. And starts just
keeps
hacking her up. And at first I thought it was just laying the beating on her, right? And I'm like, all right, are they going to save her and turn her into an ally? Or because it's not really killing her and it's almost kind of funny. But then it goes down for the bite. And I'm like, okay, never mind. She's done. She's cooked.
Yeah, she's done.
That's a wrap. So the KC Resistance, we're all done with you guys. There will not be an episode 3 featuring this arc because it's wrapped up nicely. I thought didn't linger. It moved right through. It had a lot of depth with this community coming up. They didn't get weighed down in individual members of the community or kind of infighting or anything else that kind of propelled entire seasons of Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead or City of the Walking Dead, or there's like 5 spinoffs to this now, dude. So we move on to our last little block of scenes here.
And there's one little bit that I want to talk about. Quick.
Do it.
So you saw that the beast. I just called it the beast, or the level 3.
I'll call it the beast. That's cool. We're with that.
He shot at him, and he's doing with what's in his peripheral, like kill everything right here, hit it, and then all of a sudden he shoots at him, like drew his attention. Which you did notice that Joel took aim on him with the sniper rifle and realized if I shoot him, he's going to come after me next, and he doesn't take the shot.
Nice.
Which is a very smart, a very smart target selection moment.
But that's typical of Joel being a smart kind of survivalist, kind of paying attention to his environment and knowing what the danger is going to be ahead of time and not doing anything reckless, because that's not his character. His character is not a kick the door in, gun down everything in the room, action star, superhero. But he's also not like a giant pussy, so it's they're walking that line where they need to make him a realistic dude, but also not get pushed around. So I think they're doing pretty good for that.
Yeah, and then like when you see him taking the sniper shots covering Ellie, you can see the fear in his eyes. Like if I miss, she's gonna die. You can see it in his facial expression as he takes the shot.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier about Pedro Pascal. I mean, like, finally, we're allowing him to do something that isn't be a robot. And I need more of this in the non-action scenes, because it seems like that's the only time he gets to do that. He gets to do fear and yelling for her to run. I'm going to need more.
Yeah. But that's why I would go into where it's more of his composure, that he's a very contained person. And because he doesn't want to have that come out, because the last time he was, open, his daughter died. Yeah. And then he was open with Tess, and Tess died. His brother ran off and wanted to do his own thing, so he's it's each one's a brick in the wall. He's walling himself off with.
And you got to remember, even preceding all that, like he's also a widower. Like he lost his wife young. Like they don't tell you how old Ellie was when her mom died. Not Ellie, Sarah. how old Sarah was when he died, but you're led to believe that it's only been Joel and Sarah for a good number of years until, you know, day zero happens. So this is a guy that's seen his fair share of grief and trauma without a doubt. But let's get into the last couple of scenes here so we get into the final thoughts right after that. And again, guys, we love this show. Quick pitch for the ringing the bell. I'm not going to waste any more time on that. Please do. They get away from danger. We're guessing it's a fair degree of distance away that they kind of hole up in a little motel. I'm thinking I'd have kept running until I saw now entering the next state kind of sign, because, like, is this motel just 2 blocks away from where they were? I was kind of put off a little bit by that. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'd be, because it's still nighttime when they're in the hotel. Like, how far do they actually run? You know? So, but they're basically decompressing. Sam and Ellie, they're reading the comic book and having a little bit of back and forth. That's nice. Joel and Henry are kind of further getting into, like, the bonding of, like, you know, we're going to Wyoming. I don't know how I'm going to get there. We're going to walk, but if you want to roll with us, that's cool, I guess. You can come with. And Henry's like, yeah, let's do that, because it's nice that Sam has a friend. And we jump back in the bedroom, and, you know, Sam's trying to go to bed. He ends up talking to Ellie with the magnetic writing pad. And he asks the question, and you know it's all bad news from here. Like, if you know your zombie shit, you just know. He asks her, yada. What's that?
If you know the game.
Right. Even if you didn't know the game, you know the tropes and the cliches of the genre. He asks her, you know, if you turn into a monster, do you think you stay yourself inside, kind of thing? Like, do you know you're the monster? And if your heart doesn't break in this scene, dude, just go watch something else. Like, honestly. Both of these actors are great. The kid looks scared. They had their little back and forth of are you ever scared? It mirrors what Henry was saying at the beginning. Do I look scared? That's what, Bella Ramsey's telling the kid. And then he reveals that he got bit on the leg, when he was under the truck before Ellie got there. And he's got like a pretty nasty little wound around the ankle, around the shin. And, so he's obviously, he knows the writings on the wall. She tries to reassure him by showing him the scar that she has. And then she says, hey, my blood is medicine, hang on. So she does the old palm cut, blood brothers thing and tries to put the blood on the wound to heal him up. And then the part that slays me about the scene is the last thing he writes to her is, will you stay awake with me? To like ride out the night. And she's like, I promise, or however they sign that. Yep. And then she puts it down emphatically. And I was like, okay, good job. So we cut through that get through that bit. We get fade into the next scene, and she's kind of sitting there in the chair. She had fallen asleep, and when she wakes up, Sam's sitting on the end of the bed, looking out the window. And I don't want to talk about this anymore, so you can talk about the rest of this scene, because I hate when shit happens to kids in like any genre. Like, it activates my inner Batman in a way that I'm not comfortable with in public. It just does. I hate it.
So the part that got me was like when she cut her hand to put the blood on there, and I'm like, that's not how it works. That's not how
but she doesn't know how that works either. She's just hoping, because she has her eyes closed and she's basically praying when she does it. Like, she convinced me that it might work. I'm sorry, she just did. I know damn well it doesn't work that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then, she comes over there. She wakes up, so knowing that she didn't stay up with him. Yeah. So she's already feeling bad. Yep. And then she sees him, and she comes over, hey, buddy, and she comes him, and then you can see he's not the same. Yeah. He's turned. Yeah. And then he starts attacking her, which wakes up Joel, which wakes up Henry in the other room. They come crashing through the doors. She's trying to defend them off. And then Joel reaches for his gun, and Henry grabs it first and pulls it on Joel's like, no. And then he's looking, he's watching, and then he turns and shoots his own brother in the head as it's attacking. And then, which, if you play the game, you know what comes next.
But before we get to there, they have a great back and forth with him and Joel that precedes that next dark moment. I just wanted to give that special attention real quick, because this is another scene where Pedro Pascal as Joel activates the acting for a change instead of the robot, where he sees the wheels spinning in Henry's head, and he pleads with him to give
what
him
did
the
he
gun.
do? What did I just do? What did I just do?
Their shock is setting in Henry, and it would into anybody in any situation. That's how that would go. So Joel's like, even after Henry doesn't have the gun drawn directly on Joel, he's like, Henry, give me the gun. Not put the gun down, not don't shoot, not let's talk. Just give me the gun, son. We're gonna figure it out, but you gotta give me the gun. And then, dark moment, King Z, go ahead.
He turns the gun on himself.
Yep.
They don't show it.
Thankfully.
They kept it very respectful. They did not show it. But you know, in the game, he does the same thing. He turns the gun on himself after he takes his brother's life.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you just see the look of shock on both on Joel's. Well, Joel knew what was coming.
Yeah.
But Ellie, I don't think she knew what that would do to somebody. And the look of surprise and horror and just fear in her face was all you need to see.
Isn't this the part where she cries, or was that later when they do the burial?
This is when she cries. When they do the burial, she hardens.
That's when she's hard. Yeah, that's what okay, I got it right. So this is the first time that she drops tears in the show, and it's hella convincing to me. It worked. I got no shame in saying it. Like, I felt for her. Like, I think the reality of the situation, the total grim reality of what they were facing now, like, matured her on the spot. Like, now some shit's real. Now you watched a kid get killed. You watched the older brother that had to do, and you liked him. It wasn't a stranger that was 500 yards away. It was a kid you were playing with and sharing food with. The first friend you've had since God knows how long. Because you gotta remember, when the show started, she was locked up by the Fireflies. So the show wraps up on a fairly touching scene where Joel and Ellie actually take the time to take Sam and Henry out and dig them appropriate graves, because the mountains of dirt are high that they've dug up out the ground. So you know that they buried them good and proper, and then and this part almost smashed me. She writes on the magnetic board, "I'm sorry," and puts it on top of Sam's grave, and then she's just walking away. Like, she's checked out. She's done. Now she's grown up Ellie now. And it's Joel that's kind of lingering and like looking around and watching her walk away. And then she's the one that's just like, let's go, which way's west? And then she just starts walking, and then he suits up the gun, the jacket, and they fade to black as they're walking west. Dude, what a hell of a conclusion to an episode, though, man. Right by the throat. From the minute those trucks started rushing, from the minute the sniper starts shooting. And then when the trucks rush the barricade, and then the zombies, and then the beast, and then Kathleen, and then the suicide. Woo! That show covered a lot of emotional ground, man.
A lot to unpack.
That was a banger of an episode. But why don't we get into the wrap up then in our final thoughts?
Say we take off, move aside from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
All right, so final thoughts from me, guy. Dude, I'm gonna stop picking favorite episodes because I think so far I've liked them all equally, except for the one I'm not gonna talk about anymore. I think this show is staying concurrently very well to the script of the game. It's giving me the major beats that I need. It detoured that one spot where we're not going to get any more of Bill. But every step of the way, when they're not talking about that episode, I see enough stuff from the game in terms of story, and I see enough little beats of like the actual gameplay mechanics that they do. We have the sniper fire in this one right out the game. I like that. The them trying to hold out versus the zombies and the humans. I like that. The expanded backstory of Kathleen, and how she's part of the resistance and the why in the relationship and who sold out who, like all that moral ambiguity between Henry and the doctor, and then Henry and Kathleen's brother. I liked all that stuff. It all worked because it didn't bog down moving things forward. Like, it didn't linger in the muck for an hour and a half to get to that conclusion. So I thought this was another great entry in the show, and it makes me want more, dude. Like, and honestly, every episode I watch makes me want the next one, and that's a great sign for a show because I don't always get that. I'm not even gonna rate this one, dude. It was just good. Go watch it, guys. No rating today for me. Can't do it.
I believe this episode stays on track with all but the third episode. You can see that the tone, the flow is very consistent over the four episodes of The Last of Us.
Yep.
That's what I'm going to refer to it as the 4 episodes of The Last of Us, and then 1 episode of the anthology of The Last of Us.
Yep.
It was a great show. I mean, like I was saying at the end of Assault Mode, like there was a lot to unpack because you had new friends, you had relationship building, then you had intense moment, and then you had sad conclusion, which is a reality in a post-apocalyptic world. It's a reality in real world. Like, you make friends die, and being a veteran, which I've outlined in another video of us. You can go back and hear my little spill on how they treat military people bad in these type of shows. What is it? 22 a day. 22 veterans every day commit suicide. And yeah, so it's a true thing. I've lost many friends to it. We lost friends in high school to it.
Yep.
So and I liked how they tastefully did it, because you know it was gonna come, but they didn't have to show it. And in a lot of TV today, they're so sensationalized that they would show it. And this one at least had enough class not to. So I give it, that was very well done. But you also see, yeah, like you said, grown-up Ellie. It's like she's starting to become like Joel. And I think over the next couple episodes, you're going to see where Joel's going to try to make her not go through that. I mean, even if you watch the show recap where they were talking, it's like a child shouldn't have to do that. And now she's done that. She's injured somebody, and now she's watched someone close to her die because it was infected, and then someone else close to her die because he had to kill one of the infected. So, but the action scene in this was outstandingly done. You can see Webb doing his thing. Once again, they brought in Webb to do these action scene episodes, which is pretty good. And yeah, I will have to give it that we saw the beast. That's my rating. We saw the beast.
We saw the beast. All right. Let's talk logistics before we get out of here for where the show's going. So this was episode 5. It's a 9-episode run. So we have 4 we're playing with to go. Do we see them reach Wyoming next week? Do we just jump forward? Okay, see, I was thinking the same, because I think they're going to spend a lot of real estate on Tommy's community when they get there, because that's a fairly big chunk of the game in holding down that position. I don't think we're going to get... Do you think we get 2 episodes out of that, or 3? How much time do you think we're spending there?
Well, if you go by the game logistics, like, technically Ned should be going into winter where he gets injured. But I think what they're going to do on this is they're going to get to Wyoming. They're going to have an episode as they get to Wyoming and the patching up of the relationship of Joel and his brother. Yep. But then the mission needs to continue. Because if you know the game, the princess that you're looking for is not in this castle.
Never in the castle.
So you move on, and then they go back outside, and I think that they're going to rewrite it where they get to Wyoming, and then the moving on to the next waypoint will be winter, where they have to spend it outside the community. And then we get into the moral dilemma at the end of the first game. I'm probably wrong that they're not going to split the game into 2 seasons. I wish they would, because there's so much more they could unpack, and it spanned out.
You might not be wrong on that, because if we go back and we kind of check out what you had to say about that idea in the last episode, the more I tease that out, the more I like it. And I think that just because the game has a logical break point where they could end by stretching the whole thing out, where if they move where Joel gets injured in the winter scene, if they cut that out and use that as like a season cliffhanger to move into a second season where they explore more of the first game, I think that's a solid idea for them to go with, because I think just given fan response to the 2 separate games individually, people would want more of the first game than the second game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There's no way around it that a lot of people didn't enjoy the second game, and you probably don't want to show losing a bankable star early on for a second season, then hoping the invented character who has a bit of controversy surrounding their identity anyway try to carry the load, because I don't think Bella Ramsey or Pedro Pascal carry this show in isolation of each other. You need them both, I think, to make this work. So I don't know where the show is going to go after. I think they're going to spend a little time getting to the radio station. They're going to hang out with Tommy for a bit. I really think that's a great idea you had, where it ends on Joel and Ellie move on from that because they have to keep going west, but they get harangued and hung up on the way by random poacher, random raider or whatever that puts Joel out of commission for a while. That's not a spoiler for anybody that plays the game. So.
There's two major groups that's left. There's the Steve group, because they knew one guy's name was Steve, and then there's the cannibals.
Okay.
So they could use either one of those or a combination of the two of those.
See, I think they should absolutely sit on the cannibal issue for as long as they can, because they'd probably want to avoid any kind of conceptual or thematic overlap with The Walking Dead and yet another community that just kind of resorts to the extreme measures to feed themselves kind of thing. I think they really want to save that card, because once that's played, that's it. Like, you can't go back to that. That's not something you could just throw back in the rotation. But what a great episode of a great show. I'm really glad we decided to do this one. Lot of really interesting, totally different tonally than Andor when we covered that, just in terms of pacing and flow in a different but also good way. It'd be interesting to talk about that sometime, to draw juxtapositions between the two styles of those shows, content notwithstanding, because one's on Disney and one's on HBO MAX. But dude, any last words for folks, because we're about to be up out of here because it is late.
Yep, if you stuck with us this long, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode of either Winter Wolf doing one of his solo reviews, which are always good, or another episode of us together. Also, in the comments, leave us something. Ask us a question. We might do a whole episode on one of your questions, or just do a whole episode of your questions.
I would absolutely entertain that. Like an ask us stuff about our stuff kind of thing. So yeah, dude, definitely, like King Z said, I want comments more than subscribers, to be honest. I'd really like to just talk about the show and get other people's points of views on some things. So anytime we're doing these videos, let us know. And then King Z also had a good idea, and maybe we'll cut a little. You know what? That's a good idea. Dude, let's do a quick segment right here, couple seconds, right? We just mentioned if anybody would be interested in the live stream right after the show.
This will be for the season finale. It'll be for the season finale. Right after it goes off the air, we'll go live. And that way we can have a good discussion between everybody in the chat. We can do our thing, and we'll make it a community event.
That's a great idea, King Z. I would love to talk to people live about this show. If we can sort out the logistics on our boomer end so we can figure out how to actually do that and have people commenting throughout the show. I know a few people in real life that would absolutely watch and comment as we go to just kind of, speed things along and get the conversation going. But until then, if you guys want to drop comments in any of the comment sections for any of our videos, we do follow the account day to day. King Z types in when he can. I usually get bored at work every now and then. I pick my phone up and check out the comments and the likes and see how things are going. So if you add us on something, if you comment on something, we'll definitely get back to you. At Winter Wolfsden on Twitter, also a thing. Probably going to consider some Instagram stuff now that we have some things we can cut into shorter versions and dip over there. So look for at Winter Wolfsden over there sometime soon. But until next week in episode 6, which does resume on Sundays 9:00 Eastern. So readjust your schedules. Everybody readjust. Turn them all, get everything back. Until then, guys, that dude's King Z. This guy's Winter Wolf. We'll see you in the next hunt.